Hello, my name is Peter Parfit. Welcome to New Brit Workshop, and another exciting time because we're introducing a brand new Parf product yet again. And this is the UJK Parf Repeat Stop, and it's designed so that you can make repeat cuts all of the same size time and time again using either your MFT3 or your custom track saw cutting station made with the Parf Guide System. Now, the Parf Repeat Stop consists of three main components. First of all, there's the sliding bar, which has a calibration on this part, which goes from 0 to 96. Remember, 96 is the spacing between the centres of these holes. And then there are two identical fixing posts, and parts of this will look very familiar because it lends part of its design to the Parf Superdog. And there's a chamfer element just here, just like the Superdogs, that would fit into the chamfer at the top of the holes in your bench top. And you can either use the UJK chamfer tool to do that, or you could do that with a router. There are many ways that you can set this up, and I'm just going to show you this first very simple way. I'm going to push these two fixing posts in, and I'm just going to tighten up the little knurled part which is below the top here, and that then expands those rubber washers, and those are now held firmly in place. Now, the ends of these fixing screws have got a little sort of pointed end, and that's because they're going to marry up with a very fine channel in the adjusting bar. That fine channel is nearer to you, so I'm going to slide it in here. And that's now located because I can't rotate this, and I'm going to slide that on into the next one, and so there is the gadget set up, ready to be put in the exact position that we need. Now, my stock for this very simple demonstration is this 19mm veneered MDF, and I want to cut pieces which are 100mm in length. Now, I've got two ways of doing that. I could take a piece I've already cut, push it against the bar, and I look for the edge of my kerf line which is closest to the stop here. And all I then do is to get my edge here in line with that edge of the kerf line which is there, and then tighten it up. And I can now do repeat cuts of that size. Alternatively, I can use my ruler to adjust this, and I could set my ruler up so it's on the 100mm point on that edge of the kerf line, and then again tighten up those two screws so this is now firmly in position. Now, you'll note there is a scale which I mentioned before which goes from 0 to 96 on here. Now, really, that's a relative scale. It does allow you to make some changes, and all you do is using the flat edge here of one of the anchor posts is to say to yourself, well, I want to make it 1mm smaller, so move that way by 1mm, or I want to make it 1 centimetre bigger, so you move it that way by 1 centimetre, and so on. So it gives you a means of making relative adjustments. It's not intended to be a scale that you say, oh yes, I want to make something which is 20mm long. It's not that at all. That is a relative scale. So wherever you position this to do a cut, if you then want to make that cut 5mm bigger or 5mm smaller, you adjust this accordingly. Relative scale. And you'll note that where you are standing right now, which is where the operator with the saw would stand, you're reading this up the correct way. But there's another position that this can be used where the scale appears upside down. Well, it doesn't matter, it's a relative scale. If we move it over to the other side, you'll see what I mean. Now, another way of setting this up and using it is to make a pencil mark on your piece of wood, in this case 409mm from there, and I want to make a whole bunch of these from some stock I've got lying around. Now, if one feeds one's stock in from this side so that the piece you want is to the left of the operator who's using the saw, then you can measure exactly to that line and set that line up as the mark where you're going to do your cut. And I've now got that pencil line lined up with that edge of the guide rail. I then know when I make that cut, my saw blade will go just through that pencil line. And I want to make a whole bunch of these, so this time I'm going to deploy the anchor stop on this side. Now, it's just slightly easier in this case for me to put these two on here first. There's one, and there's the other. And the reason for that is I don't want to move this piece of wood. It would otherwise be in the way. So in this particular case, I'm going to very carefully push down on these two so as not to put anything under strain. So there they are, they're pushed in. I'm just going to tighten up those knurled sections so they're held in place. That's fine. So they're in place. I now move this so it's touching this end of the wood. Tighten up my two tightening knobs there and just check, yes, I'm going to cut through the line. And I then do my saw cut in the normal way. And I can then take away this piece, put another piece in, and do cut after cut after cut. Now you may notice in this case, if you're standing on that side, the scale is upside down. Well, it's going to be right on one side and not on the other. So whichever way we produce the scale, there would be one situation where it would be the wrong way up. It doesn't matter. It's a relative scale. So if I wanted to make the cuts another 5 millimeters bigger, I just loosen it off and move that over by 5 millimeters. Tighten it up. And now each time I do a cut, move that across, it's going to be 5 millimeters bigger than my last one. It's a relative scale. And of course, this can be used for repeat cuts, even at 45 degrees. Now let me just tell you about some things that you need to make sure you do when you use the Parf Repeat Stop. First of all, the holes in your bench top must have the chamfer. And for that you can either use the UJK chamfer tool, or you can put a chamfer there with your router, but not too deep. Now, when it comes to removing this, I would prefer that this was removed separately and not used as a tool to extract these anchor points. Just loosen them off and then lift straight up and they'll come up in the normal way. You can disassemble this. If you do, just make a note that that chamfer element has to have the chamfer to fit down into the hole in your bench. Remember that the scale is a relative scale, and on one side of the bench it's up the right way and on this side it's upside down. It really doesn't matter because all you're using the scale for is a relative change from what you've measured in the first place. Now the UJK Parf Repeat Stop is on the Axminster website. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.